The day before the wedding, the old flame who'd left Sloan Ramsey when she was at her lowest point came back. I asked her jokingly, should we postpone the wedding? She feigned annoyance. The sky would have to fall. Tomorrow, I'm coming home with you, no matter what. The next day, I waited at the wedding venue from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. Her phone went straight to voicemail. It wasn't until after the wedding was officially canceled that she finally rushed in. She looked exhausted as she explained, Julian Vance's ex-wife was trying to extort him. He contacted our law firm and specifically requested me. We were at the police station all day giving a statement. As his attorney, I had to be there the whole time. It was just work, nothing personal. Looking at her dead serious face, I laughed coldly to myself. So, Julian Vance wasn't just her old flame. He was her sky. By the time Sloan rushed in, the event staff had already torn down most of the wedding decorations. The welcome portrait of the bride and groom had been knocked over, lying shattered on the floor with its frame. She stood in the lobby, her face etched with guilt, enduring the fury of our families and guests. For a full half hour, she apologized profusely to my parents, her attitude impeccably remorseful. Only then did she break through the crowd and come to my side. She found me, sitting absently in front of the vanity mirror, just staring into space. She lowered her eyes, explaining cautiously, I'm so sorry, Caleb. Today was a really exceptional situation. In the mirror, she looked haggard, like she hadn't slept at all. Normally, if she'd pulled an all-nighter for work, I would have cupped her face in my hands, my heart aching for her. But today was our wedding, and her so-called exceptional situation wasn't the sky falling or a death in the family. It was spending the entire day at a police precinct with her old flame. I lifted my eyes, meeting hers in the reflection. The guilt in them was so thick it could move a stone. I used to fall for that look every time, but right now, all I felt was the biting irony. New love, old love, she couldn't seem to let go of either. I slowly curved my lips into a smile and spoke calmly. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's fine. Thank God we hadn't signed the marriage license before the ceremony. It's not a big deal. I just got to see my fiancé's true colors on our wedding day. Seeing my calm demeanor, Sloan froze, her mouth agape. It seemed she had a whole speech prepared. Ready for the moment, I started questioning and yelling at her. My complete lack of reaction threw her off balance. At this point, what more was there to say? I stood up, intending to walk past her. Sloan grabbed my wrist, her voice softening. Caleb, where are you going? Tonight, we still have to. I turned my head, cutting her off. I canceled the flights to the Maldives, too. I don't think we need a honeymoon anymore, do you? After all, the wedding's off. I shrugged, glancing around the room. The dreamy, beautiful decorations were supposed to witness a couple's happiest moment. Now they just made the whole farce feel like a colossal joke. Sloan wouldn't let go of my hand, still murmuring apologies. In the middle of our standoff, someone else hurried in. From a distance, I saw him, and the hand gripping my wrist suddenly tightened. I had never actually seen Julian Vance before, but as he approached us, his head held high. I knew with absolute certainty it was him. When Julian got closer, his face was also a mask of guilt. He hesitated for a moment before stopping beside Sloan, reproaching her. Sloan, I didn't know today was your wedding. You should have told me yesterday. Otherwise, I never would have asked you to be my lawyer. I feel terrible that my little problem ruined your wedding. I had been about to leave. Hearing his words, I stopped. The name Julian Vance had been a constant presence in my life ever since I first met Sloan, a ghost that never left. Her friends all said Sloan had loved Julian for 7 years. He was the flame she chased relentlessly through her youth. Eventually, that flame had turned its attention to her. They were together for a year, then broke up right around graduation. At the time, Sloan's mother had fallen gravely ill. Her father's small company lost its funding and was on the brink of bankruptcy, facing massive debt. And then, the boy she loved broke up with her, the final straw. She ran off to a beach to drink herself into a stupor and was nearly caught by the rising tide. I was the one who noticed something was wrong and carried her to safety. It was my bad luck that she was so beautiful, and my bad luck that I was a hopeless romantic. From that day on, I pursued her relentlessly. I didn't care if she had an old flame. No matter how beautiful that flame was, hanging cold and distant in the sky, it could never compare to the warmth of someone right beside you. When Sloan's mother was sick, I found the best hospital and contacted the most renowned specialists to create a new treatment plan for her. When Sloan's father's company was in trouble, I had my family corporation quietly invest in it. I did it all from the shadows, worried about hurting her pride. I was just there for her, day after day. The day her mother successfully completed her final surgery, was the same day her father's company weathered its financial crisis. That evening, she dragged me back to the same beach. I had never seen a woman in her early 20s cry with such raw intensity. She cried until she was exhausted, then lay back on the sand and started laughing like a fool. The permanent furrow in her brow finally smoothed out. In the twilight, her eyes shone with an incredible light. She hugged me, saying over and over that she thought her life had hit rock bottom, but since meeting me, it was like a miracle. She said I was her lucky charm. That was the night we finally opened up to each other and officially became a couple. Julian Vance was handsome and carried himself with an air of sophistication. He could just stand there, and people would be drawn to him. Right now, I stood across from the two of them, feeling like an outsider, watching the couple everyone used to call the golden couple. I had to admit, they really did look perfect together. No wonder Sloan had been infatuated with him for 7 long years. And no wonder she lost her composure the moment he reappeared. Julian's apology was directed at Sloan. As for me, the primary victim of this whole fiasco, he hadn't even given me a proper look since he walked in. My heart sank. This guy was bad news. Sloan didn't seem to expect him to follow her to the reception hall, either. After a brief moment of shock, her expression hardened. She took 2 steps away from him, creating distance. Mr. Vance, you're overstepping. Our relationship is strictly that of a client and his attorney. I believe our business for the day concluded at the police station. This is a private matter between my fiancé and me. Please leave. Faced with Sloan's cold dismissal, Julian didn't get angry. He curved his lips into a perfectly measured smile. My apologies. I was being inconsiderate. He turned his face, his gaze drifting lightly over me. There was no provocation, no sizing me up. He looked at me with the same nonchalance he'd show a complete stranger. I've heard of you, Caleb Shaw. Thank you for taking care of Sloan after I left all those years ago. I'm very sorry about today. Sloan has always been a deeply sentimental person. She hasn't changed one bit over the years. She's a good woman. She deserves a lifelong commitment. His words, laden with hidden meaning, felt like a sharp slap across my face. Since when did a long-gone ex-boyfriend get to stand here and pass judgment on my relationship with Sloan? A cold laugh escaped my throat. Sloan sensed my mood shifting and grabbed my arm, trying to pull me away. Caleb, don't listen to him. Let's go home and talk. I shook her hand off. Go home. Go where? Sloan, you don't actually think that after this disaster of a wedding, I'm going to plan a second one with you, do you? I'm 29, not 22, and this is our 7th year together. The rest of the words caught in my throat. A wave of heat rushed to my eyes. After suppressing the storm inside me, I stopped looking at Sloan. My gaze, now ice-cold, locked onto the man in front of me. He was looking right back, his expression calm and fearless. But I knew that beneath the surface he was anything but calm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here. He wouldn't have come to face me. Mr. Vance, is it? A pleasure. We're both men, so let's drop the act. The invitations for my wedding to Sloan went out a month ago to all our friends and family, including her law firm. And with a flippant, I didn't know, and I'm sorry, you destroyed nearly 6 months of planning by 2 families and turned everyone's efforts into a joke. You're rushing here right now. Is it a sincere apology, or are you here to show off your charm, to see the results of your little performance? You know the answer better than anyone. If it's the latter, then congratulations, you won. You are very charming. Even after 7 years, all you have to do is crook your finger, and Sloan comes running. But don't you think your methods are a bit despicable? If you want the woman, just take her. Why did you have to humiliate everyone in the process? My family is in business. How big of a business? Sloan never asked, and I never elaborated. She had her own career. But in recent years, her industry has become incredibly competitive, making it hard to advance. So she had no idea. She had no idea how many heads of major corporations, how many of our city's industry leaders my family had invited today. Among them were many high-value client or firm was actively trying to land. If the wedding had gone on as planned, with her professional skills and reputation, I have no doubt she would have secured those clients easily. But today's bride-less wedding was destined to make our 2 families the laughingstock of the city, and no company would ever trust its legal affairs to a woman who bails on her own wedding day. My verbal assault left Julian looking cornered. His eyes flickered, and he didn't respond. He just stood there silently, looking at the woman caught between us. Sloan rubbed her temples, a headache clearly setting in. She tried to explain to me, Caleb, it's not what you think. Julian, The short, intimate use of his first name burned my ears. I dodged her outstretched hand, grabbed the half-full glass of water from the table, and threw it in her face. Shut up, Sloan. Compared to Julian Vance, you're the one who disgusts me. Don't trouble yourself anymore. We're done. The commotion got loud enough to draw my parents over. They arrived just in time to hear me say I was breaking up with her. They were never completely satisfied with Sloan to begin with. But because I was so completely in love with her, they never stood in our way. But now, not only had Sloan skipped her own wedding, she had brought another man back with her. Anyone could see what was going on. My mother raised her hand to slap her, but I stopped her. It wasn't worth it. After the canceled wedding, I broke up with Sloan unilaterally. As for the wedding expenses, the initial agreement was that our families would split the cost 50-50. For my family, the money was nothing. But being publicly humiliated by this mess had destroyed my good temper. I had a full accounting of all the bills sent to Sloan's family. It wasn't a huge sum, just around $200,000. They could afford it, but it would sting. After all, it was all for nothing. Sloan's parents came to our house to apologize. Seeing how resolute I was, my parents didn't even open the door. After being turned away a few times, Sloan's mother sent me several text messages trying to plead Sloan's case. Out of respect for an elder, I replied politely a few times. Once she realized my mind was made up and there was no chance of reconciliation, she sent me a novel-length text at 2 in the morning. It listed all the ways they've been good to me over the years and detailed just how outstanding her daughter Sloan was. Finally, she stressed that her family would only pay for half of the wedding expenses. That, she said, was what our families had agreed upon before the wedding. Besides, she pointed out, guests from our family alone took up 80 tables. As for the wedding dress, the suits, and the planner, those were all things I had wanted, so we should bear those costs ourselves. She completely ignored her own daughter's role in the catastrophe. Staring at the wall of text on my phone, I had a laugh. I thought back to the years when her mother was sick and Sloan was busy with work. I was the one running around, making all the arrangements for her. Back then, her mother, lying weakly in her hospital bed, had said that having a son-in-law as good as me was her family's greatest blessing. Now that she was healthy, she had the nerve to start lecturing me. It's because Sloan is so exceptional that other men are drawn to her. She just missed the wedding. It's not like she cheated. Men need to be more magnanimous. I couldn't bear to read the rest. I forwarded the entire conversation to Sloan, then blocked and deleted the contact information for her whole family. Maybe life had been a little too comfortable for them these past few years. They'd forgotten where they came from. Sometimes, people need to take a fall to remember their own worth. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. On the other end, Sloan sounded sick, her voice thick with congestion as she apologized. "Caleb, I've already taken care of all the expenses. I didn't know about what my mom said. I apologize on her behalf. I'm out of town for a court hearing for a couple of days. When I get back, let's talk properly." To be honest, if it weren't for the wedding disaster, Sloan was a pretty good girlfriend. Looks aside, she was emotionally stable and intelligent. Even though everyone used to say she had an old flame buried deep in her heart, I never paid it any mind. 7 years of being together, day in and day out. How could that not outweigh some distant, idealized memory? Besides, I was the one who stood by her, step by step, when she was at her absolute lowest. But that day, as I sat all alone in what was supposed to be our new home, listening to the cold, automated message that the person I was calling was unavailable, I realized just how ridiculous my thinking had been. A person only has a few truly momentous events in their life. On her wedding day, the bride disappeared. While I was frantically worrying that something terrible had happened to her, she was running around solving problems for her old flame. How little must a woman care about her fiancé to so completely disregard his dignity? Remembering the shock and heart-wrenching coldness I felt when I learned the truth, I clenched my phone. "Sloan, let's end this amicably while I still have my sanity. Let's just say these past 7 years, I was blind." At the club, my best friend Ryan Miller ordered 8 models for me. The young women stood in a line, a sight for sore eyes. For a moment, it managed to dispel the gloom that had been hanging over me for days. "Here's to our handsome and wealthy Mr. Caleb Shaw, single again." Amidst the popping champagne and the girls' shrieks, the door to the private room was pushed open. Sloan walked in, her face ashen. Dressed immaculately, she was completely out of place in the room's decadent chaos. She kicked aside an empty bottle on the floor and threw a stack of cash on the table. "Everybody out." The young models looked at each other. The girl sitting next to me quietly scooted away. "Bro, who is this?" "Ignore her. Continue," I said, taking a sip of the drink from the girl's hand. It burned. Sloan's face darkened, and she threw 2 more stacks of cash on the table. "If you're not out of here in 10 seconds, I'm calling the cops." Ryan jumped to his feet, pointing at her and yelling, "Sloan, are you ever damn mine? Why are you so obsessed with clinging to your exes? This is a perfectly legal private party. Who the hell are you going to call the cops on?" Sloan stared at him coldly. "I didn't agree to the breakup, and you don't get to decide what's legal." Ryan scoffed. "Are you serious right now? You're playing games. If you didn't want to break up, maybe you shouldn't have ditched your groom and all your guests on your wedding day to go play hero for your ex-boyfriend. After what you pulled, an amicable breakup is Caleb being soft. If it were me, I'd have blasted you two all over social media until you were the most hated couple in the city." Ryan had a fiery temper and rarely lost an argument. The 8 girls, seeing things were getting ugly, grabbed the cash from the table and scurried out. Ryan spat. "These girls have no backbone." Sloan shot him a withering look. "All that dirt on your ex-wife online. You're the one who leaked it, weren't you? I hear she's looking for a lawyer to help her sue for defamation." Ryan was taken aback. His face flushed red. He opened his mouth, flustered and ready to deny it. I stood up, grabbed my jacket from the sofa, and walked straight out. Ryan moved to stop me, but I calmed him with a look. Sloan had been trying to find me. It was better to get some things cleared up face to face. It was a crisp autumn evening, with a chill already in the air. I buttoned my jacket and walked ahead, Sloan following close behind. We passed the park where we used to go for walks on our dates. I stopped and turned to face her, my patience wearing thin. What else is there to say? Let's just get it all out at once. Sloan seemed unaccustomed to me speaking to her this way. Her brow furrowed, as if she were the one who had been wronged. For the past 7 years, I had always been gentle with her. Even when we argued, I never gave her the cold shoulder. Perhaps it was my unconditional tolerance that gave her the courage to stand me up on our wedding day. She probably thought I was still just sulking. She let out a small sigh, her expression turning serious. "Caleb, you can't just condemn me like this. I admit what happened that day was partly because I was sentimental about an old friend. And it just so happened that I was very familiar with the situation he was in, so I agreed to go take a look without thinking too much. The other part was my own misjudgment. I originally thought I could solve the problem in an hour, which wouldn't have affected our wedding the next day at all. But I didn't expect his ex-wife to threaten suicide when the extortion failed. The situation escalated, and that's what caused the delay. I've already transferred his case to another colleague. I won't have any more contact with him in the future." Her explanation was logical and reasonable. I nodded. "But Sloan, what does that have to do with me? All I care about is the result. Everything she did had a reason, but it wasn't as if she had no other choice. She's not the only competent lawyer in the world." Understanding the meaning behind my words, Sloan's face slowly turned pale. I lowered my gaze, a self-mocking question on my lips. "Sloan, is it that hard to admit you still care about him?" "Caleb, I don't care about him." She looked up, her denial instinctual. The next second, her phone rang in her pocket. She didn't move. I reached over and pulled it out for her. Julian Vance's name was flashing on screen. Remembering what she had just said about having no more contact, I let out a cynical laugh and held the phone out to her. She curled her hand into a fist, refusing to take it. The screen went dark. A moment later, the phone rang again. As the urgent ringing started for the 3rd time, I answered it for her and put on speaker. "Sloan, where are you? I think I have a high fever. I'm not familiar with the hospitals here. Can you take me to see a doctor?" I raised an eyebrow, looking at Sloan. As if to prove something, she took a deep breath and bit out each word through clenched teeth. "Julian, that's enough." The other end went silent for a moment. Then a dejected voice came through. "Sloan, I know you're still mad at me for leaving without a word back then, but I had my reasons. Later, when I heard your mother was seriously ill and your father was in a debt crisis, I tried to contact people to help you solve the problem. How else do you think your family got through that difficult time so smoothly? I was wrong, but you can't erase the fact that I genuinely cared for you. Even as an old friend, it's not too much to ask for you to help me now, is it?" Julian's words made my eyes go wide. Seeing the confusion creep into Sloan's gaze, I ended the call and asked her, my lips trembling, "What does he mean by that? What does he have to do with what happened to your parents back then?" Sloan closed her eyes, as if after a great internal struggle. Her shoulders slumped. She opened her eyes and said in a muffled voice, "Caleb, let me take you home first." "No, you answer my question first." My insistence left Sloan looking helpless. "It's true, my family owes him for what happened back then. Now that he's in trouble, I can't just ignore him." A thread seemed to connect in my mind. I looked up at her and asked uncertainly, "So, you're doing all this because he helped your family back then?" Sloan, preoccupied, nodded distractedly. Her phone rang again, and she prepared to leave. I reached out and grabbed the corner of her jacket. Even though our relationship was broken, she deserved to know the truth about some things. Sloan, what happened to your family back then had nothing to do with Julian Vance. Just think about it for a second. If he chose to break up with you at that exact moment, then quickly went abroad and married some rich woman, why would he care about your parents when he didn't even care about you? Besides, the investment in your father's company has increased year after year. If Julian Vance really had that kind of power, why would he have needed to leave you in the first place? Don't you think the timing of his return and everything that's happened is just a little too convenient? Sloane's body went rigid. She snapped her head up, her gaze darkening, her voice turning cold. Caleb Shaw, Julian is not the kind of person you're describing. Yes, he abandoned me back then, but that doesn't prove anything. It just means he didn't love me. It's not a character flaw. Back then, with all the trouble my family was in, no one else would have cared as much as he did. Don't make these wild accusations about him. I stood before her, feeling as if I'd been struck by lightning. The phone rang again. Sloan glanced at her watch, then quickly hailed a cab. Without another word, she pulled open the door and pushed me inside. Caleb, you go home. Once I'm done with Julian's situation, I promise I'll give you a satisfactory answer. I love you. Sloan rarely expressed her love so directly. But now, she said it quickly, urgently, as if she were trying to soothe me, and perhaps remind herself. The moment the door was closing, I stuck my hand out to block it. I looked up at her, my gaze serious. Sloan, what if I told you I was the one who found the doctor for your mom, and I was the one who arranged the investment for your dad? Sloan's expression froze for a second, then her eyes drooped. Caleb, let's not fight. 7 years ago, we had just met. Who would do so much for a near stranger? I know you don't like Julian, but there's really no need to lie. The car door shut. I watched her hurried figure disappear into the night. I sat in the car, stunned. I always thought that my 7 years were also Sloane's 7 years. That she had felt the happiness and sadness of these 7 years just as I had. That I had felt the happiness and sadness of these 7 years just as I had. I thought that some things, even if I never said them, she would eventually understand. But just now I suddenly realized, these were my 7 years alone. In these 7 years, I learned all of Sloane's habits. I learned her likes, her dislikes, everything about her. And she, to this day, doesn't even know what my parents do for a living. Doesn't know what I've done for her. I used to think it was her sense of propriety, that she didn't pry in my life out of respect. Now I suddenly understood. It was never about respect. It was just a lack of care. Otherwise, the truth was so simple. If she had put in even a little effort to look, she would have easily figured it all out. A joke. This was all a complete and utter joke. I pulled a smooth, warm ring from my pocket. I rolled down the window, tossed it out into the street, and didn't look back. At the family dinner table, I struck up a conversation with my parents. You mentioned before that, Mrs. Hayes' daughter was nice. Is she married now? My parents exchanged a puzzled look, wondering why I was suddenly bringing this up. After all, they knew how much I hated these conversations. If she's not with anyone, could you two please arrange something? I've thought about it, and it's better to be with someone from a similar background. You know their family, and it's just more efficient. I've never been opposed to marriage and children. My parents worked hard to build this legacy. Someone has to enjoy it. Hearing my words, my mother became visibly excited. She put down her fork, breakfast forgotten, and started listing off the daughters of Mr. Harrison and Mrs. Peterson. She looked ready to arrange meetings with all of them today. My father was more composed. After my mother ran through her list, he offered his brief opinion. Of all these girls, I think Julia Hayes is the most outstanding. She's a worthy match for our Caleb. Done. Julia it is, my mother decided with a clap of her hands. Seeing that I didn't object, she happily bustled off to make the call. After breakfast, my father and I discussed some company business. As the only son, taking over the family business is inevitable. For the past couple of years, I've been gradually handling more executive-level decisions. Towards the end of our conversation, I brought it up casually. That investment in the Ramsey family small company, we should probably pull it. The returns are too low. It's not a good deal. The company's legal retainer is about to expire. We should look at partnering with a different firm to get some fresh perspectives. And at the hospital, there's no need to give Dr. Evans any special instructions anymore. Everything connecting me to the Ramsey family could be cut. I looked up and saw the relief in my father's eyes. I felt a twinge of guilt. I loved Sloan for 7 years, and my parents put up with it for 7 years. Perhaps I should thank Julian Vance for intervening. If we had gone through with the wedding, a divorce would have been far more painful. While Sloan was busy dealing with Julian Vance's mess, I had a pleasant meeting with Julia Hayes. With our similar family backgrounds and shared experiences of studying abroad, we seem to have a lot to talk about. Our time together was incredibly comfortable and easy. I didn't have to tiptoe around her past or carefully avoid certain topics. She appreciated my easygoing nature and my decisiveness. After our second meeting, I was direct with her. I almost got married recently. You've probably heard about the fiasco. What happened is real. I can't avoid it or deny it. So you should think carefully about whether you still want to continue getting to know me. When Julia came to see me the next day, I knew she had made her decision. She was holding a bouquet of snowflakes, waiting quietly for me downstairs. The afternoon sun bathed her in a serene light. The whole scene was impossibly beautiful. I didn't answer you on the spot yesterday because I was worried you'd think I was being rash and not taking this seriously. To be honest, I hadn't paid much attention to gossip, but I know that when a bride is a no-show on her wedding day, it's never the groom's fault. These flowers are my answer. The snowflake flower symbolizes new beginnings. Looking at her open and honest face, the anxiety, hesitation, and doubt in my heart suddenly vanished. Yesterday, I told myself I was giving her time to think, but really I was giving myself time. In that moment, I realized I had been overthinking things. When you're with someone who is straightforward, life is so much simpler. The news that Sloan was injured came from a friend, Carter. I was on my way to a concert with Julia when he called. In the enclosed space of the car, his voice was crystal clear. Caleb, Sloan was seriously injured. She has an abdominal wound and just got out of surgery at City General. You need to come quick. I instinctively looked up at Julia in the driver's seat. Feeling my gaze, she glanced over and gave me a gentle smile, a silent gesture for me to handle it. Caleb, are you listening? I thought for a moment, then put the call on speaker. Carter, Sloan, and I broke up the day the wedding was canceled. It's not appropriate for you to call me that, and you don't need to inform me that she's hurt. Just notify her family. He clearly didn't expect me to say that. The line went silent for a moment. Besides Carter's breathing, I thought I heard another, heavier gasp. Carter awkwardly tried to smooth things over. Caleb, I know you're just joking. You and Sloan were together for 7 years. How could you break up so easily? What happened on the wedding day was Sloan's fault. We all told her off for you. But this time she's really hurt. Whatever misunderstanding you two have, you should just see each other and clear the air. I sighed and said calmly, there's no misunderstanding between us, and there's no need to bring up the past. I paused, my eyes resting on Julia's warm face. Also, I have a girlfriend now. I don't want her to get the wrong idea about me being tangled up with an ex, so please don't call me again. As soon as I finished, I heard several sharp inhales on the other end of the line. Then a shrill voice cut in. Caleb, what are you talking about? What girlfriend? And as for breaking up, I told you I don't agree. Her tone softened. Caleb, I really know I was wrong. I promise, as soon as I recover, I will give you an even grander, more unforgettable wedding. Can you please come to the hospital and see me? I miss you so much. Sloan could be so stubborn sometimes, only willing to believe her own perceptions and judgments. I pursed my lips and angled the phone slightly towards Julia, giving her a helpless look. She caught on quickly, her voice clear and proper. Hello, this is Julia Hayes, Caleb Shaw's girlfriend. I'll be the one giving him a grand wedding. We'll be sure to send you an invitation. The sound of a phone hitting the floor was followed by a chaotic clatter. I hung up. When I looked up, Julia had already parked the car. She was watching me with a smile in her eyes, her poise utterly captivating. On a sudden whim, I asked, Julia, you don't have an old flame, do you? Her smile faded. She looked me straight in the eye, her reply incredibly sincere. My upbringing taught me that everyone has a past, but you have to have a clean heart before you can love someone new. I was very satisfied with that answer. When Ryan found out Julia and I were together, he was so shocked he swore 3 times in a row. He said it was a sign of respect. Julia Hayes has a reputation in our circle that's one of a kind. Caleb Shaw, you've finally upgraded. In the past, my world revolved around Sloan. After we got together, I rarely went to social events with my own friends, usually hanging out with hers instead. So I didn't know much about Julia. But Ryan, as picky as he was, could rattle off a long list of her good qualities. When it came to flaws, he racked his brain and came up with 2 words, hard to get. If I'd known she was into your type, I would have broken you and Sloan up years ago and pushed you away. Mentioning Sloan, his tone became secretive. Did you hear about her getting injured? I nodded. His eyes lit up with the thrill of gossip. Perhaps trying to be considerate of me, he toned down the schadenfreude on his face. It was because of that old flame of hers, Julian Vance. I'm telling you, Sloan is just an idiot. How can you fall for the same guy's tricks twice? What good could possibly come from getting involved with a man who abandoned you when you were at your lowest? That guy married a wealthy overseas Chinese woman, got his hands on a lot of money over the years. This year, The rich wife ran into some trouble, so he immediately took the money and fled back to the country. He didn't trust the local lawyers, and what do you know, there's a ready-made one right here, and she's his old sweetheart. Sloan is gorgeous, and you've taken such good care of her these past few years. She really has that perfect, untouchable first love vibe. Of course he'd latch on her. That rich wife is no pushover, either. She has connections here. Sloan really was blinded in this case. She just listened to that guy's story, violated professional ethics, and got herself set up. Getting hurt is the least of her problems. Her career is probably over. After he finished, I was silent, thinking about a lot of things. Ryan leaned in and whispered, "Caleb, you don't still have feelings for her, do you?" I chuckled lightly. "Sloan? She brought this on herself. I was just wondering if Julia likes skiing. I think Aspen is opening for the season soon. By the way, you want to come with us this year?" Ryan's eyes lit up. Yes. I'll bring my girlfriend, too. Let her learn a thing or two from Julia." After Sloan was discharged from the hospital, she started waiting near my house every day. I saw her once through the car window. She was much thinner, more haggard. Her pale face had the fragile look of someone recovering from serious illness. She never used to smoke, but now a half-finished cigarette was pinched between her fingers. She leaned forlornly against her car, head down, lost in thought. Julia asked if I wanted to get out and see her. She said Sloan was there every morning when she arrived and was still there when she left at night. I shook my head. What's the point of meeting when there's no hope? Given time, she would naturally understand. Besides, whatever she wanted to say, whether it was an explanation or an apology, it no longer meant anything to me. Our story ended the day she ran to her old flame. A hand suddenly covered mine, our fingers slowly intertwining. Julia whispered, "I don't want you to see her either." I looked up, and we shared a smile. It's so much better being with someone who isn't a mess of complications. Sloan's epilogue. On the night of October 25th, after saying good night to Caleb, I lay in our perfectly decorated bridal suite, my heart racing. The thought that by the next morning, I would be with him forever filled my chest with an indescribable joy and contentment. How do you describe that feeling? It was like a ship that had been drifting at sea for years was finally about to reach the shore, or like a lost and anxious teenager being given the most precious gift of their life. In short, that night, I was too excited to sleep. So when Julian Vance's call came in at 1 a.m., I was a bit dazed. For a moment, I couldn't even remember who he was. Not until the voice on the other end continued. "Sloan, it's Julian Vance. I'm back in the country, and I'm in a bit of trouble. Can you help me?" My mind exploded. Memories of my youth came flooding back in the dead of night like an open floodgate. But even then, I still had my senses. I refused him, and with a secret thrill, I told him I was getting married the next day. The line went quiet for a moment. Then I started to hate myself. I could have just politely refused and hung up. Why did I have to put myself in such an awkward position? When Julian asked for my help for the third time, I did a quick mental calculation, accompanying him to the police station to file a report and give a statement. An hour should be enough. It was only 1 o'clock. There was still time. I grabbed my coat and rushed out the door. In that moment, I wasn't sure if I was rushing because I was worried about Julian's situation or because I wanted to get back as soon as possible. A series of unexpected events completely derailed my plan. When I finally left the police station, I looked at my watch, slapped myself twice across the face, and hurried to the wedding venue. A nameless panic welled up inside me, threatening to drown me. That feeling intensified when I saw Caleb sitting all alone at the vanity. Caleb hated being lied to more than anything. So I explained my absence to him with an extremely calm demeanor and a level tone. Caleb had always been so considerate and understanding with me. As long as I sincerely admitted my mistake, he would surely understand. But for some reason, Julian followed me there. I never imagined the two of them would come face to face. Julian had just been through a traumatic experience the night before, and Caleb's words were so harsh. I was worried Julian might do something drastic, so I stepped in between them and said something. Caleb's eyes instantly turned red. He threw a glass of water at me and said he wanted to break up. At that time, I still thought he was just angry. The only reason he was so mad was because he cared about me, because he loved me. He would never really want to break up with me. Clinging to that thought, although I was anxious, I never imagined I would actually lose him. Getting back together was just a matter of time. I couldn't stand Caleb's friend, Ryan Miller. And I knew Ryan hated me too. He always thought I wasn't good enough for Caleb. That day, after I got Caleb to leave the bar, I had planned to apologize to him properly and make amends. I could distinguish between the past and the present. No matter how wonderful Julian was to me, he was a reflection of the moon in the water, a flower in the mirror, an illusion of the past. Only Caleb was the person I truly and deeply love now. But Julian was like a ghost I couldn't shake. When he saw that appealing to our past wasn't working, he brought up my parents' crisis all those years ago. He implied that he was the one who had pulled my family out of that mess. He said that I should help him out of a sense of duty. The timing of what he described lined up. He had just married his rich wife back then and had the financial means. Suddenly, Julian Vance had transformed into my family's benefactor. I had no choice but to help him solve his problems. I told myself that once his issue was resolved, we would be even. But that day, Caleb was uncharacteristically stubborn. He scoffed, calling me a fool. He said what happened to my family had nothing to do with Julian. He even said that he was the one who had helped my family. That was just ridiculous. It had been 7 years. If it were really him, he had countless opportunities to tell me. I guess he was just trying to compete with Julian out of jealousy. Boys are like that. I could understand. I never thought that would be the last time I would see Caleb. For the next few months, I threw myself completely into Julian's case. As a lawyer, I had always been diligent, meticulous, and dedicated to my work. But for some reason, as soon as Julian opened his mouth, I believed every word he said. And it led me to disaster. I was stabbed. It wasn't until I was lying in the hospital that I sensed something was wrong. Caleb hadn't contacted me in months. I asked my friend Carter to let him know I was injured. No matter how big our misunderstanding, I believed that when he heard I was hurt, he would rush to my side. But on the phone, he was as cold as a stranger. When he said he had a new girlfriend and told us not to bother him again, I admit I broke down. Caleb loved me so much. How could he possibly move on so quickly? I didn't believe it. But I was quickly proven wrong. The woman was right there with him. My phone fell to the floor. The world spun, and my sky came crashing down. After I was discharged, I waited every day outside Caleb's gated community. But he never once came out to see me. I always knew Caleb's family was well off, but I never looked into the specifics. During those days of waiting, watching the people coming and going from the neighborhood, something dawned on me. I started searching online for his parents, for their company. Staring at the pages and pages of information on the search engine, I finally, belatedly, understood. I remember that night. Caleb, with his hand blocking the car door, asking me, "Sloan, what if I told you I was the one who found the doctor for your mom, and I was the one who arranged the investment for your dad?" I was so angry at the time. I even accused him of lying. I sat in my car, my breathing ragged, my whole body shaking. I couldn't even hold the cigarette between my fingers steady. What the hell did I do to Caleb? He was right. I was disgusting. I only kept watch for half a month before I stopped, because my family was in trouble again. After the major shareholder pulled their investment from my father's small company, a cascade of problems began. My mother, hit by one blow after another, showed signs of her old illness returning. And the law firm where I worked, which was supposed to promote me to senior partner this year, sent me a termination letter because of my unethical conduct in Julian's case. It seemed like the highlight of my life was that one night before the wedding. Another 6 months passed. While I was struggling through my exhausting life, I received an invitation. It read, Caleb Shaw and Julia Hayes. I missed that wedding too. I never found the courage to face the reality of Caleb marrying someone else. My entire life will likely be trapped in that one night, just a single step away from happiness, in lifelong agony and regret.